Welcome to Innovate, Disrupt, or Die, the podcast where innovation isn't just an ideal, it's a way of life. I'm your host and creator of the Innovate, Disrupt, or Die newsletter, Danny Nathan. Welcome back, folks. I'm Danny, and this is another episode of Innovate, Disrupt, or Die, the podcast. This week, I have Nate Valentin with me, and I am thoroughly excited to talk to Nate about innovation and what it means to him, especially through the lens of manufacturing and physical goods and stuff that we don't get to talk about quite as much here. So, Nate, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm really excited for our chat here. First of all, Nate, just give us a little bit of an introduction to you, what you do, your role, your company. Just give us sort of the background rundown here.
Sure. So Nate Valentin, based in Tampa, Florida. I work for a company called Adams Corp. My title is VP of Innovation. So I've spent probably the last 15 years working in either product development roles, data analytics roles, technology management, like VP of IT roles. And most recently, 4 years ago, I joined the team at Adams. And basically, as VP of Innovation, you think about it, it's everything under technology, marketing, digital, but then that also bleeds into data integration and systems.
Now, just so I'm clear, Nate, you're not overseeing all of those things. You're just describing the areas where your role kind of touches within the org, yeah?
So I sit over the IT team and I sit over the marketing team. And then I have, staff underneath that. Now we have a fully built out engineering team. Depending on the project that we're working on, I might advise specifically if it's on the software side, or if we're trying to, ideate on maybe a new go-to-market, I would participate in those areas too. But specifically at Adams right now, marketing and technology both roll up under me.
Cool. That's a lot of responsibility. So, Nate, before we dive into kind of the nitty gritty here, tell us a little bit about Adams and what the company does so that we can understand the lens through which we're kind of talking about innovation here.
Yeah. So Adams is 65 years this year, family-owned business, third generation. We like to
That's
consider
fantastic.
ourselves a value-add distributor. So consultants to any manufacturers in the Southeast. So we might go in and do anything from sell you a valve that you might need to go on a piece of equipment, all the way to building you a robotic cell that would automatically stack pallets of dog food, right? So you imagine how wide that spectrum is. We're really trying to work with organizations to understand where their pain points are, and then to really just help them solve problems through a mix of, any number of different products, but, also technology.
Awesome. That sounds a lot like what we do at Apollo 21, but I'd imagine that you guys lean far more into the hardware side of things, if I'm hearing correctly. You're talking about valves and, manufacturing pipelines and things. Is that primarily in the physical space or?
So here's an example, right? You might have a bottling company. So they've got all these bottles going down a line and they're filling them, right? They're filling them with soda, let's say, and they're trying to put a cap on it. We might have a piece of hardware, a camera, right? A Cognex camera that can look at that cap and take a picture in a millisecond. And then what we would do is we would write a program around that picture to determine, is that cap all the way on, right? Is it good? Is it bad? Now that component is the software side of things. So depending on the solution, you will have a component that might be hardware, and then you could have a software layer all the way to the point of having like a fully integrated HMI that somebody's interacting with that shows them, part inspections. So it really is a dynamic space that we kind of sit. And then on top of that, in kind of the back of the house, we've spent a lot of time investing in different technologies and software systems to also improve and automate and innovate, the back of the house stuff, right?
So you guys really are kind of involved across the board. Do most of the engagements start with some sort of hardware or manufacturing oriented need? Like you use the example of the bottle cap being put on. I understand that there's software that might need to be written to help fulfill on that kind of request, but does it generally or always start from the perspective of a manufacturing line or something like that?
So the way that our team is set up is we have territory sales reps, right? So their roles specifically, they are reliability and automation consultants, right? We want them to focus on either helping you automate or helping you to reduce your downtime. Because as you might imagine in a factory, If everything's stopped and it's not working and you're not producing product, you're losing money. So ideally, our team is out there in the field visiting, different facilities and working with maintenance teams, CEOs, to understand, hey, what's going well, what's not, what do you need help with? And through that relationship, the customer might share pain points with us, and some of those things you might be able to help them on, right? A very basic example is you might have an assembly line that's got a few motors on it, and those motors have bearings or need to be lubricated at certain intervals. And maybe the maintenance team is not doing it correctly. Maybe they're putting the wrong lube in, maybe they're putting too much, maybe they're putting too little. So we have a solution that we can, provide that is automated, right? It's automated, you put it on a schedule, and that is a mix of the innovation on the product side, right? But also you have to be there with the customer and understand what they're trying to do in order to be able to present a solution like that. Now, whether that customer needs the basic version of that is just, going to be kind of set it and forget it, or whether they need a fully integrated system with a dashboard that they can turn on and off, different mechanisms, that's totally different, but we could do both sides of those.
That's really cool. So I'd imagine then that your customers rely pretty heavily on you to kind of play the role of innovator within their business. I mean, it sounds like they're coming to you when they know that there's an opportunity, but perhaps don't know how to capitalize or execute on it.
And that's a good way to put it. I think the other thing is that they also rely on us to sometimes tell them, no, you can't do that. Like, you just can't. I understand what you might try to do, but no, we can't put this through that fast, right? Or no, you can't stack that high, or you can't lift that and move it that far. Or if you are going to do that, then we need safety sensors. We want to make sure nobody gets hurt. So the good thing about where we sit is we probably represent, let's say, 20 different product lines. And those lines, it could literally be a hose fitting all the way to a robot that could literally pick up a vehicle. So if you imagine the breadth there are a lot of relationships that we can pull from, where the solution for you, like, let's say that you happen to be in the dog food business, and you're like, man, we are tired of stacking these boxes, we really need your help. We could come in and provide a solution for you that is specific to what are the size of, those boxes, how much do the bags weigh, right? What is your current line speed? How high do you want the boxes stacked? And then we can fully deploy that to you, but we can do it in a way to make sure nobody gets hurt. So whether that's through safety sensors or through guarding, like, there are a lot of things that you can do, but each component within that solution might be from a different brand, right?
Mhm.
So if you imagine, you look at your computer setup, you might have one brand of monitor, a different brand of keyboard, a different machine, but if you put it all together the right way, it'll work flawlessly, right? I think that's kind of how you could look at some of the turnkey solutions that we can provide for customers. But absolutely, they're relying on us to be the subject matter experts.
That's really cool, Nate. So, all right, let's dive into one of the more difficult questions that I might toss at you. What does innovation mean within the walls of your company? I mean, given what you're describing in terms of your role as innovator for external clients, and then, of course, a need to understand what's being brought to market so that you know what you could be recommending, or, as you nodded to, what's possible, how do you all view innovation?
So I think the big thing for me, and the thing that I think has really helped us move forward, is fortunately at Adams, between myself and our president, Doug Adams, we have a tremendous amount of trust. I've known Doug since high school. Having a 20-year relationship with someone, that amount of trust to start from is huge, right? Because especially in innovation, there's this time, and maybe you can relate to this. There's this time where you might have an idea and you think, I think we can go from here to here, but there's this unknown that you have to kind of get through because a lot of people aren't doing it. If it was easy to do, it'd be all over the internet, right? If the solution was readily available and it was obvious, it would have already been done. So I think that really it starts with a tremendous amount of trust. When I started at Adams, we launched a brand new e-commerce store. We launched an OCR based order, invoice, and acknowledgments solution. We launched a brand new CRM. So we went through this period of probably 2 years of almost like a technology overhaul. So that, to me, inside of the facility, is what really set us up to be able to grow and to be able to support, growth at, a comparable staffing size, right? I mean, we spent You spend a year implementing an OCR based tool that can help you with orders, acknowledgments, and invoicing. And before you know it, you can process a 50% increase in business with the same amount of staff because you've leveraged technology to be able to do something that was otherwise routine and mundane. Right. And on the inside of the house, that's how we look at it is, what are areas that we can improve and opportunities that are now available to us based on technology that really allowed us to review and improve on a lot of our internal systems.
That's great. So, Nate, how much of your time then is spent focused on internal innovation and growing the capabilities within the walls of Adams versus helping your customers and clients with their progressive needs?
So my time specifically is going to be focused more so on the internal systems or on, market innovation, whether it's go-to-market strategy, whether it's marketing strategies. Our team, right? We probably have, depending on who you want to include, let's call it 15 outside salespeople all day, every day, they're meeting with customers. And the goal of those meetings is to really just understand the pulse of the customer, understand their pain points. And then what ends up happening is as things continue to, come up, then those might be opportunities for us to create maybe our own solution. We recently released a product that is called Data Pulse. And what that product does is it is an add-on to camera hardware that we already sell, but we built an interface and a database that could store all the images that it takes. So imagine that you have an inspection of, some piece of hardware that's going to go out into an amusement park, right? And you want to make sure that everything's okay on that. So before it leaves, you take a picture of it. Well, heaven forbid, on a random Saturday, something happens. Can you go back and pull that image? Most customers could not. So we kept hearing that over and over and over again. So our engineering team picked that as one of the products that we were going to develop. And we spent the better part of 6 months to a year prototyping and developing that product. We showed it initially at TechFest last year to gauge customer insight. And then as of today, we've probably sold 12 different instances over this year. And that is totally homegrown. So we took an existing product, we found an issue in the market, and we built a custom solution for it and then productized it. Internally, part of an innovation strategy, I think, is identifying the new technology trends that could accelerate your company forward or eliminate unnecessary tasks where, especially now, AI and automation can really do it better than you could have done on your own anyways. So that to me is a step in terms of innovation that would then amplify the work that 15 or 20 people can do based on picking specific applications and intentionally inserting software in this example to help drive the company forward more efficiently.
Right, right. Totally makes sense. Nate, I want to circle back to something that you kind of nodded to a moment ago. When I asked what innovation means to you, you went directly to trust and were describing the trust that you have with the company president and the history that's helped build that trust. That aligns in my mind to something that I kind of harp on often, which is building a culture of innovation. Talk to me a little bit about how a culture of innovation lives within the walls of Adams, and as you're describing the the onus that is put on the sales team, for example, to look for opportunities and to understand when a customer says, I'm struggling with X, that there might be an opportunity buried in that. How do you kind of create and cultivate that mindset internally so that people learn to look out for those things and learn what innovation means and how they can participate?
It's interesting you bring that up because we just went through an exercise this year of identifying our core values. And there were legacy core values. We wanted to reevaluate. We've grown a lot in what we do, and we've expanded our capabilities. And we show up in the market a little bit differently now than we did before. So we have one that's learn, do, teach. So basically what a lot of times what I see is people that say that they know how to do things, but then they don't actually ever do them. And then they can't actually teach it, but they might be certified in XYZ. So what we really want to do is we want to learn the technology. I want to understand the technology. I want to use the technology, and then I want to teach you how to use it. If you're coming to me to buy a robot and I've read all the manuals, but I've never actually used it and I don't exactly know how to get the arm to move like this. How much trust are you going to have in implementing that in your business and potentially changing your entire business landscape, right? So that's one thing that we really try to harp on. Another one is innovation catalyst. We are absolutely focused on where are opportunities for us to improve. That could be external in the example that I gave you about the platform that we developed, or it could be internal in terms of, hey, Nate, it'd be great if we could automate our time tracking from harvest back to the deal after the engineering work is done so we can, level set on cost, right? That's also innovation. It's internal and we might be the only ones that see it, but that is also going to move us forward and give us information to make decisions. And then the last one is raise the bar and then raise it again, right? Everything and almost in every opportunity there are areas where you can either do something better, faster, or smarter, and to really try to train our team in having that approach to everything they do, right? Not just a customer meeting, but also how we might arrange our inventory in our warehouse. That's how it literally shows up for us.
It's great. I love that. And you can definitely understand where the core values that you've described would form sort of the underpinnings of a culture of innovation and enable people to feel like they have the opportunity to learn and experiment and grow.
Yeah, for sure. You also have to be okay to strike out every once in a while and not feel like you're going to be judged or that your idea is stupid, right? I mean, there are plenty of things I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can do that. And I did it, but it doesn't mean we should have done it. So, it's great to turn that into a muscle where you are comfortable in this space of not knowing exactly how something is going to turn out,
Yes.
but you have enough experience of solving complex problems that you're confident you can get to the other side. I think that so many people stop themselves right before taking that, final step or that next step into the unknown because it's very uncomfortable. You can't just Google the answer, even with ChatGPT and Claude and all of these tools. If this thing has never been done before, and this is the first time that that component has been paired with this other one to do this specific thing, you're going to have to figure it out on your own, right? And a lot of people don't want to be in that space. And what we try to do is make it as comfortable as possible.
Is
Is
innovation a
innovation a
mandate at
mandate at
Adams, or is it
Adams,
something
or is
that
it
you feel
something
like
that
you
you
have to
feel like you
fight
have
for?
Now, so I think that, and I don't want to say that we got here by accident because we didn't. And I'll go back to trust. But when I got brought on to Adams, it was what I was going to do was largely unknown, right? Doug, our president, my best friend, had just taken the business over. So he had some plans. But there was also a lot of, I would say, just discovery that we needed to do, initially just to kind of figure out where we're at, right? And I think that that's probably true for any organization. Before you can go start, making a bunch of changes, you got to know where you're at, where you're strong, where you're not, and where you have skills, especially internal for your team, and where you might be needing some outside help. But after that, it was pretty quick that we were able to come up with at least two or three things that, hey, you know what? If we did this, this would be a really good opportunity. If we did this, this would be a really good opportunity. And we started off just kind of, I would love to say we did it one by one, but we kind of did like five at once over the
Yeah,
course
you
of a
get
year and a half.
excited
I
and
mean,
it's hard to.
yeah, you know how that goes. Like, yeah, we could do that and that and that. So it was tough. I'm not going to say it wasn't difficult, but we got used to the change. So we got used to, okay, hey, this quarter we're rolling out a new CRM. Okay, so we roll out a new CRM. Okay, now next quarter we're rolling out a new leads process because now we've integrated all of our leads from all of our factories directly into here. So sales team, you used to do it this way. Now you're doing it this other way, right? So we got used to the change and we really focused, or at least I really tried to focus on the communication aspect so that everybody understood what we were doing. They understood why we were doing it. They understand how it would benefit them. And I think that that really helped people get comfortable in the change because even if they didn't understand the underlying technology, they could make sense of, oh, yeah, we should do that because it's going to be better, in the long run. So that was really, really huge for us, I think, initially. So now it is absolutely part of the culture. I mean, we have 6 core values, 3 of them you could trace back to innovation. Now I think the biggest thing for us is it almost might be trying to pare it down. So we might have 15 ideas. Let's try to go through and pick the top 5, or let's split it out so that the engineering team has one, my team might have one, operations might have one, and then the sales team has one or two. So I think that's really where we're at, where everything we look at, we try to understand how we could do it better, right? Like I said, core value, better, faster, smarter. That applies to every meeting, every situation, every business process, every product that we sell. And if we see an opportunity, then the first thing is just document it, right? And then bring it up in our leadership meeting. And then we try to discuss it. We lay out, our quarterly goals, and then we go at it. It's part of our culture now.
It sounds like it's become highly ingrained, and it sounds like you did the hard work of teaching people to be comfortable with discomfort around, as you were describing changes in the technologies and the process changes that result from the changes to the technologies that you're using. It sounds like you were able to get people on board with, we're doing this, this is why, this is what the benefit will be, and yes, it's going to be hard for a little while, but we're all going to get through it together.
Yeah, I think now it's a lot more common now to hear in the marketplace like, oh, AI is going to take your job. When we rolled out the OCR tool that was basically going to auto process orders, acknowledgments, and invoices, it was several years ago. It wasn't that story wasn't quite as public as it is now.
Mhm.
But absolutely, when we first had those meetings, there were some people that are like, well, wait a minute, that's what I do. It's like, whoa, 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 we're not trying to take over what you're doing. We're just trying to take the part of your job that is absolutely redundant and mundane. We want to take that away so you can focus on this really hard, complex stuff. And then, hey, maybe even do some other stuff in the future. And I think one of the best things about Doug, our leader, is that he's an idea guy. So if he's at a conference, if he sees a newsletter, if he's on a webinar and he sees something, he might not necessarily be able to tell you exactly how it is going to help us, but it'll click for him enough to say, you know what, I think we could use maybe a piece of this and see, if we can implement. So, right. So that ends up being an email, which is maybe a quick conversation that we have about what he saw and what he's thinking. And then, it goes into the queue. And if it's something we can implement, then we do. But he has an eye out for whether it's new products or new opportunities or new technology that he pushes down to the team. So it absolutely feels like you're supported because, the originating idea might have been him. He's fully on board to anything we can do to help our team get better, faster, and smarter.
The fact that it comes from the top down, I can see where that gives you the flexibility to feel like somebody there is in support of what you're aiming to accomplish. Nate, as you're talking about all of the different ideas that are coming through the queue and, the idea of having to pare your list of 15 down, talk to me a little bit about your prioritization process and how do you go about assessing opportunities for innovation and determining which ones should move forward today versus those that might need to wait or those that don't happen.
So the best thing we probably did was put some structure around this, right? So the biggest area where this comes to light that could potentially impact customers is sales opportunities, right? Because we might have 100 sales opportunities right now, and every single one of them might involve our engineering team. Well, we only have 7 or 8 engineers, so they can only do so much, right? So we have weekly meetings with our sales leadership and our engineering leadership, and they review all of those opportunities as soon as they come in. As soon as we have enough information to review them, we review them and decide go, no go. So if we ended up proceeding, we know this is in our wheelhouse. We have the skill set, we have the knowledge, or it's in an area that we want to strategically expand. We do that up front, and that is probably how we keep, control of our deals and our opportunities on the sales side of things. Internally, I think what we really try to focus on is we really try to look at what are the highest leverage opportunities. There are a few things that are absolutely non-negotiable when it comes to strategic initiatives like our events. We throw an event in February in Tampa. We throw an event in Alabama in the fall. Absolutely, those are always priority number one in those quarters. And then what we try to do around that is to strategically fit initiatives, that work with team capability. So it's not always about immediate ROI. So we do that through quarterly strategic meetings with our leadership team. If there is a heavy ROI attached to it, like a product that we're thinking about launching, then we will do some ROI calculations and some product market fit. That's to the greatest extent possible to understand, yes, we think we can sell it. Yes, we've talked to these customers. If it's an internal project, we're typically addressing some type of pain that we've identified throughout the year.
Sure.
And then we really just try to fit it in based on, schedules and like I said, the availability of the skill set required to do that particular job.
Gotcha. So for something that's more product oriented, Nate, like your OCR product or platform that you launched recently, when you decide to move forward with something like that, what does the process then look like? How much are you talking to customers to understand the underlying need? Do you start with an MVP type of build, or do you all come up with clear, discrete requirements for sort of what the end goal of that product looks like and build from, nothing to that?
I'll talk specifically around the Data Pulse product because that one is further along down the path. So for that one in particular, our VP of engineering and then our VP of integrated solutions, which are basically like in charge of engineering and in charge of all automation products, they've been in this industry for at least the past 10 years, specifically around machine vision and factory automation. So the reason that we picked that pain point specifically is because they were hearing it all the time. And we didn't have a good solution for it until we found a new technology that we ended up partnering with. And we were able to say, hey, we could take this thing over here, connect it with that thing over there, and we think we might be able to solve that problem that we keep hearing about. So as of last year, we picked 3 or 4 different engineering platforms that we wanted to try to develop ourselves. All of them were either around pain that our engineers felt while trying to develop solutions around factory automation. And we'll come up with MVPs. We'll get customer feedback as soon as we can. Do we spend a tremendous amount of time lining out exactly what the requirements will be? No, because to be totally honest, we don't know. We don't know. We don't even know what's possible. We know that theoretically, I want to be able to get all these images. I want to be able to log them. I want to be able to pull back the image. I want to understand the timestamp and all this other data. But for us to upfront say, and that needs to be done within 2 milliseconds and look like this and be designed like this, we don't know enough about what is possible in that particular instance to do that. So we're doing it on the fly.
Got it.
So
your
that's
process
how
is
we go
highly
into it.
iterative and highly learning driven as well.
Absolutely. We are trying to do the thing to learn the thing. So the way that I have, learned about AI automation, any of the chatbots, any of those things is by actively solving problems. Because yeah, you can watch the YouTube video, but at a certain point you got to hit pause and you got to go log in and you got to actually try to do the thing. And that's absolutely how we do things. We're going to do it. And then that's how we're going to learn. We've got an idea. We feel good about the idea. We agree on the direction. Let's go do it. And let's check in every week and see what we need.
Nate, what are some of the challenges that you run into as the VP of innovation at Adams? Like where is innovation really hard within your walls?
I think the hardest thing probably always will come back down to prioritization, right? I think that as a manager, what you want to try to do, at least what I always try to do, is I don't want my team to wonder what they should be working on. Right? I want them to always know what they should be doing. I think that you can fall victim to this like illusion of efficiency where you're trying to automate things that just shouldn't be automated. A great example of this is I just got an email from our president yesterday, and there were some images that had award nominees on them for different categories that are absolutely perfect target accounts for us to try to do some cold outreach, right? So here is somebody who is nominated for the top, facility manager in Florida. We probably want to talk to that person if we don't already know him. So, he sends me a message and he's like, hey, could we build a chat bot, that could automatically go out and do this? And to me, if you take that at face value, you absolutely could. I could absolutely build a workflow that would do that in an automated fashion. I could probably string together a few different apps. But is that what I should be doing? If I don't need to do something repeatedly, then I don't necessarily need to build all that infrastructure to do it, even though I could. So I think that just comes with maturity is, not every opportunity should be valued the same. I feel like people get so excited about the things that they can do, they end up doing the wrong things because they can. It's like, oh my God, did you know that I can now read 500 PDFs? Great. What are you going to do with the information? Nothing. Then you shouldn't have read them, right? So
there's a great Jeff Goldblum quote about that from Jurassic Park, of course.
I think that over the next several years is going to be a struggle, is making sure that you are not spending time doing a whole bunch of things that are cool, but are low value.
Yes. That makes a ton of sense. Nate, I want to circle back to something that you called out right at the beginning of our call. You mentioned at that time that your marketing team answers to you as the VP of Innovation. Talk to me a little bit about why or how that works and sort of what the role of innovation plays in the marketing department.
You know, when I got to Adams, I said, hey, we're doing really cool stuff, but nobody knows about it. So at the base, we're just trying to talk about the things that we're doing and share them. And a great way that these two worlds overlap, I host podcasts here for Adams. Just recently, there was a robot in here, and we hosted a podcast between the robot sales rep, Adam, and our VP of Integrated Solutions, Jeff, and they talked all about automation. But then afterwards, I knew what tools I could use to do hours and hours worth of editing and clipping and transcripting automatically. That is the only possible way I could ever create that amount of content with a team as small as mine, right? The amount of work that can get done if you know the right tools to use and you can line them up in the right production order. You know, we put out more content than probably any one of our peers. And our team is probably, it's got to be as small as theirs because we're 1.5 person and, you know, I'm half in another department. So that's really how we do it on the event side too. We're constantly trying to figure out ways that we can capture the most amount of data possible for our events. So we have able to string together a series of apps that for $500 we can host an event with 500 attendees, and I can set it up so every booth can check in leads and we can get notes on each leads, and I can put that into a spreadsheet within a couple hours after the event's done. Right? That is really done through spending time in different applications and seeing, okay, well, I can use this for this, I can use this for this, and then I can do this process over here, and boom, before you know it, I can upload these leads into HubSpot and get them back to the factories, and we'll have more information than we ever had before. Right. So I think that there's such a strong correlation between data and marketing, and there is so many tools that are now available to help on the content side to create content. If you can get the base done, right, you can record the long form podcast like this one, you can record the long video. There are tools out there to help you with graphics and clipping. And that's really, really how we look at it in terms of innovation.
Fantastic. Nate, this is a fascinating conversation, and I love your perspective on things. I'm sure we could chat for hours. Given that we do need to wrap up shortly here, is there anything that you're dying to share or anything that I forgot to ask you that you think is poignant to our conversation?
I think more and more organizations need to start embracing this. And even if it's not a title, but if it's just a direction that you give a particular person or maybe a small group of people, I think that it really has helped us at Adams, but more so than helping Adams specifically, I feel like it just helps me approach problems differently, right? I think that learning how to think about problems and not being afraid to try to figure out the solutions on your own is, you know, a skill set that can be applied far outside of, you know, your work.
Awesome. Couldn't agree more. Nate, do you have any favorite resources, books, newsletters, podcasts, things like that that help you keep up with what's going on in the world of innovation?
So I really like the Startup Ideas podcast. That's a good one, especially for technology first folks. My First Million is also a good mix of technology and business ideas there.
I'll have to check them out. Nate, where can our listeners find you if they want to learn more from you?
I have a podcast as well where I talk all about AI automation and data. That podcast is called Data Smarts. You can find that at datasmarts.io. I'm on LinkedIn, Nate Valentin. Either of those places, you should be able to get a message over to me.
Thanks so much for your time, Nate. It's been great having you.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
That's it for today. Thanks for tuning in to Innovate, Disrupt, or Die, the podcast. Join us again for our next episode, and don't forget to subscribe at innovatedisruptordie.com. That's all, folks.